Sorry.
Good morning, everyone. We are ready to start the ACCSP Coordinating Council. My name is Jeff White, and I'm glad to have you all here. I wanted to welcome Kathy Knowlton as her first meeting as chair. So, Kathy, appreciate your long history within ACCSP at all levels, both from Rec Tech Ops and now Coordinating Council Chair, and your thoughtful contributions. So, with that, I will hand that over to you to get us through.
All right. Good morning. I really appreciate you all's time and being here. We have a couple of members who are attending virtually, so we will make sure that at the end of our welcome and introductions that we do not forget to have them also address the group. I see some new faces here at the table, and I know that we have got some new members. Next slide, please.
Next slide, please.
There we go. We've got some new members here, and some of the faces are unfamiliar to me because I do not sit on any of the commission committees. So we have a little bit of time this morning. I know we're running late. We have a little bit of time this morning, but I would like to take a few minutes to go around the table, please, and introduce yourselves. And if you can think about it very quickly, about how many years you have been involved with ACCSP. So I know we've maybe got some new faces that have some years on other committees. I can start this off. Started in 1999 with Recreational Technical Committee, many years on that, and Ops, and about 5 or 6 years here with the Coordinating Council. And I am Kathy Knowlton with Georgia DNR Coastal Resources Division.
Thank you, Kathy. I'm Renee Zobel with New Hampshire Fish and Game, and I have started with ACCSP committees, I think, in about 2006. So it's been a little while for me as well. I will assist Kathy as our vice chair.
Hi, everybody. Jason McNamee, Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management. I'm like searching the memory banks, maybe 3 or 4 years on the council here. Not too long, but starting to get up there. Thanks.
Dan McKiernan, Director at the Mass Division of Marine Fisheries, 1 decade since Paul Diodati retired.
Good morning, everybody. Marty Gary with the Division of Marine Resources for New York as their director. Previously participated with ACCSP when I was at the Potomac River Fisheries Commission, so that goes back to 2013. And since I've arrived in New York in 2023, I've been representing New York here at ACCSP. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Julia Beatty. I'm staff with the Mid-Atlantic Fishery Management Council. I've been with the Mid-Atlantic Council for 10 years, and in that time I've used information from the ACCSP and got a lot of helpful assistance from ACCSP staff, but I've only been on an ACCSP committee or what have you since January, so I'm a baby committee member.
Joseph Mino, while I was with VMRC, I was on bycatch and bio committees. I don't know, Julia, maybe since you started, but I think around 2005, 2006, when we were doing week-long meetings in person. That's how I became friends with Richard. And then I've been with New Jersey for a little over 7 years. And Heather Corbett, who is my proxy, typically sits for us, and she's online, and I appreciate that, but happy to sit today.
Richard Cody with the Office of Science and Technology with NOAA. On the NOAA side, I've been involved for the last probably 8 years or so in different capacities, but as Joe alluded to, we've been involved with ACCSP for a number of years, going back to the early 2000s, not long after Kathy started her involvement. And that was with the state of Florida, FWC.
I'm Chris Kuhn. I'm the Director of the Bureau of Fisheries with the Pennsylvania Fish and Boat Commission and serve as the proxy for Administrative Commissioner Tim Schaefer on ASMFC, and I've been in that role since 2020.
Erica Burgess, section leader with Florida's Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. I have been sitting as Jessica McCauley, our Marine Fisheries Division Director's proxy since 2021. But if you want to go in the way back machine, my first job out of grad school was as an FMP coordinator for ASMFC, and I got to work with Jeff and his team way back when.
So oh, did I skip you?
All right, sorry. Easy to do. Bid Dyer with the South Carolina Department of Natural Resources. Indirectly been working with ACCSP or products for quite some time, but formally this is on my second year. So happy to be here. Thank you.
Okay, I need to learn patience, I think. So I'm Brandy Salmon. I'm the section chief for our license and statistics section at the North Carolina Division of Marine Fisheries. And I've only been a part of the ACCSP Coordinating Council for like a year or two, so you might as well call me a baby also.
Good morning. I'm Stephanie Iverson Kaysen. Of course, I've been here multiple years, many years. I'm not even gonna give you the date that I started. Just say I've done this 32 and a half years. So I've been with ACC, managed many of the committees. I think I was on all of them as a chair, except for maybe Rec Tech. So it's a pleasure to be with you all. Of course, it's my last meeting because I'm retiring. But it's been a pleasure working with ACCSP and the team. It's, you know, I've seen us grow from really, we had nothing on the table but a signed MOU when I started. And now look at what you've become. How amazing is that? So it's a pleasure to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ingrid Braunrix. I'm the representative for PRFC, proxy for Ron Owens, and I've been involved with ACCSP committees since 2023. So kind of a baby also.
Hi, I'm Carrie Kennedy, Maryland Department of Natural Resources, proxy for Lynn Fegley. I am a baby coordinating council member, but I've been around Rec Tech and operations since circa 2006, 2007. And I have a very distinct memory of Stephanie welcoming me to my first operations meeting with a big hug. So you will definitely, those hugs will be missed.
I'm Rich Wong. I'm at Delaware Fish and Wildlife. And thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing us to introduce ourselves because I am new here. I have a stock assessment background, so I've been wholly reliant on ACCSP data for many years, going back to North Carolina Marine Fisheries in the early 2000s. So it's been a while, and I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carl Wilson. I'm the commissioner for the Maine Department of Marine Resources. I'm still in the NICU unit. And so this is my first time here. I had been with the department for 25 years though. First 15 was around lobster, and so we interacted with ACCSP quite a bit back in those days, setting up the lobster database and good times, bulk filling lobster databases at that time. So anyways.
Megan Ware, I think 6 years now on the coordinating council, so puts me probably in like the toddler wing, I think, and then previously commission staff.
Hello, everyone. Bob Beal, ASMFC staff. I'm probably in the nursing home wing. I think I started 1997. Was out of grad school. Was my first part-time job at the commission. Was working on socioeconomic issues for ACCSP. So whatever the math there is from 97.
Hi, I'm Julie DeFilippi Simpson. I've been with the ACCSP as a staff member for 1 month shy of 18 years.
Thanks, Julie. Jeff White, ACCSP Director. I started at the commission a year after Bob in '98, and so was part of the science department as Lisa Klein was getting the MOU signed, and well, it had been signed by that point, but getting the ACCSP up and running, and it became ACCSP staff 2004.
Okay, and I think we've got 3 of our members, including Heather, though Joe is sitting at the table. If they are online and they would like to introduce themselves, that would be great. So let's start with John Carmichael. If he is online, that would be, like to hear from you, John.
I am here. Are you hearing me, Madam Chair?
Yes, I am, sir.
Excellent. Thank you. Appreciate this opportunity. John Carmichael, Executive Director of the South Atlantic Council, representing the council. I think I've been on the coordinating council maybe since about 2015, perhaps. I've been the executive director here since 2020, joined the council about 2003. Also spent time on the ops committee. I'm another former ASMFC staffer from 30 years ago, so put me in the nursing home with Bob. Been involved some degree with ACCSP pretty much from the beginning, it seems, from a data user to now the coordinating council. So thank you.
Thank you, John. And Greg, are
Hi,
you?
good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely, sir.
Excellent. Yep. Greg Wojak with the Connecticut Marine Fisheries. I'm a proxy for Matt Gates today. I've been with Connecticut for 27 years now, and I've been involved with ACCSP for, I would say, at least 10, probably more years at some level or another with Rec Tech and Ops. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Heather. Do we have you, Heather? We are working on our end. We'll keep looking for you, Heather, on our list to unmute on our end. I appreciate everybody's patience with that. That was very entertaining and interesting to hear about. And thank you to whoever started, I guess it was Erica, with the baby members, because Joe, because I am definitely feeling I'm not only in the nursing care wing, but I might be in the memory care wing. I might, just everything is completely getting more difficult. But my sort of style with chairing is to definitely keep this, try to keep it a little bit fun, try to keep it light. The work that's going on here through ACCSP is massive. It can be very technical. I have worked with Jeff. We are trying to restrain ourselves from the eye glazing technical that we nerd out and get so excited about. But nobody has any offense with it. I'm going to be a first name person kind of gal, and we will just get into this with, oh, Heather is unmuted now. Heather? Heather, you might be self-muted on your end. Joe, I think Heather might be a figment of our imagination. No, Heather, we'll try to catch up with you later in the meeting as well. So first, next slide, please. First thing we've got is going to be the agenda. Are there any requested changes, additions, deletions to the agenda? I am not seeing in the room. We'll check with online. We're good online. Can we approve the agenda as it is submitted then? Okay, I'm not seeing objections around the room. We will consider this approved by unanimous consent. Rinse, repeat. We're going to go through the proceedings from our last meeting, from the October 2024 meeting. Does anybody have any edits, deletions, additions they would like to make to those meeting proceedings? Seeing none around the table. Do we have any online? Nope, we're good to go. Are there any objections? Okay, seeing none, they're approved by unanimous consent as well. And public comment. Do we have any public in the room that would like to make a comment? Seeing none. Any public comment online? No. So we are ready to roll right into Julie's portion.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next slide, please. Okay, so the funding subcommittee was charged by this group in October of 2024 to look at some of potential changes to the primary program priorities. The membership of that committee sort of needed to be reconstituted because some folks had left their positions. So the chair of that group was Bob Beal, and then we had Julia Bird, Nicole Langell Costa, Mary Ellen Gordon, Fran Karp, Carrie Kennedy, Kathy Knowlton, and Renee Zobel. So you'll notice it's a mix of operations, an advisor, and then also coordinating council members. So we kind of get all three of those groups represented. Between December of 2024, which I just noticed is a typo, and March of 2025, we did not go back in time, but we did do 3 meetings of that group. Next slide, please. So what the committee reviewed was they did an analysis of how changing the scoring would impact the overall ranking. Nicole had done this previously as an exercise, so she reconstituted that, and what it does is they go back and look at the rankings that were done in a previous year using the new criteria to see how different that was. So Julia, Carrie, and Mary Ellen also did that exercise just to give us a little bit of perspective from different folks. And then there was an open discussion of the priorities, and the determination was changing the priorities gave us a little bit of a new direction in the right way is what we were thinking. And also that wasn't a significant change. It wasn't going to be like, oh my goodness, now you can't fund something that previously would have been funded. Next slide, please. So the first recommendation for the primary priority was to decrease the catch and effort from a range of 0 to 10 to 0 to 8, and increase the socioeconomic range from 0 to 4 to 0 to 6. So we're upping socioeconomic and bumping catch and effort down. On the next slide, what you'll see that does is it actually, we might have to click twice. Thank you, sorry. What this does is it actually swaps the biological sampling and makes it the top priority with a range of 0 to 10, because that was increased 4 or 5 years ago, something like that. And so catch and effort is now our second priority with a 0 to 8. And this is really on the idea that a lot of catch and effort work has been done. Obviously, we need to continue to maintain that, but given the factors of what the RFP money is meant to be spent on new projects and in more advancements, we wanted that focus to really switch toward the biological projects while still recognizing that we do want to fund any new catch and effort projects that are still out there. So that's the first recommendation from the funding subcommittee that was accepted by operations and the advisors. Next slide. So the second recommendation here is on the secondary priorities. It was noted that socioeconomic was the only one that was different. It was 0 to 1, and all of the other ones had a secondary priority of 0 to 3. So this is if your project has 2 priorities, you can gain some extra points. So the recommendation from the committee was that ops and advisors should choose one of the following options in sort of making there be a little bit more of a fair playing field or an even playing field in the secondary priority, which was to make all of them equal or to make each secondary half of the existing primary. So on the next slide, you'll see that they chose to make each secondary half of the existing primary. So the range goes from 0 to 5 for the biological all the way down to 0 to 3. On the next slide, there was conversation about the useful to stock assessment or the impact on stock assessment, and it was noted that you can actually have something that's useful to management, and you can say, oh, okay, well, because it's useful to management or because it's got impact on a stock assessment, therefore it's going to be useful to management. But the reality is that those are two separate things. So their recommendation was to add a new criteria, which was useful to management, but it would have the same range of 0 to 3 as the impact on stock assessment. And then if you click it again, it was also suggested that we add the following language in the guidance document. The long and short of this longer language is that when you are doing your summary for ranking, we're requesting that proposers justify the impact on stock assessment or useful to management with language that doesn't say we think this will be useful to management. So provide a little proof as to why you think that will be true. And then the final change for the funding decision document is the addition of language. This was something that was discussed, and it was decided that it shouldn't be, we shouldn't roll it out altogether, but there was the question of paying for third-party data or the development of third-party software that had the same functionality as existing ACCSP software that was available to the partners. And we realized that while that may in some cases be necessary, so we don't want to rule it out altogether, the language is just hinting to proposers that you have to have a really good justification, and you can put in your proposal, but you have to recognize that it may not get funded for those reasons because the focus is not to pay for those kinds of things.
So I am going to put a pause right here. Just wanted to make sure that everybody is crystal clear on the changes that are being recommended, especially the fact that we are adding, this is the first time that we're adding a new ranking criteria. It's only a range of 0 to 3 points, but the impact on management is something that has bubbled up several times relative to a lot of proposals can speak to impact on stock assessment, but if there's not a stock assessment coming up or preparing for one in about 2 or 3 years by perhaps going and having additional biological data collection, there are other ways of perhaps that we needed to account for the impacts to management. That's something that could be so highly necessary and a priority for a management issue on the table. I think you all here at this table are pretty familiar with the need for data for making our informed management decisions. So just wanted to make sure everybody was clear, and you're clear on the fact that the range of scores changing. Also remember that those are multiplied for the primary program module. So we are very excited about these recommendations. I'm very proud of the team for going through and testing them using a year or two of prior proposals to see how their scores would have changed. I feel confident with this, but I wanted to stop and take a minute. Do we have any questions around the table up to now? Yeah, Ben.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Quick question for clarity. And I totally agree, and I appreciate the insight for use of management. But in proposals in the future, are they going to be allowed to, if the opportunity arises because there is a stock assessment coming up, to apply to both of those? So stock assessment and management, they would be able to meet both those criteria. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, seeing no other questions, Julie, if you would please continue, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that is the end of changes to the criteria. The only other changes to the RFP that we have for this year, next slide, sorry, is the matrices from the biological sampling priority and the bycatch sampling priorities. Both of those committees do meet every other year to update those matrices. So this was their years, and they met in January of this year to do that. There were no changes to the recreational priorities, so those did remain the same, and the same is also true for the socioeconomic priorities. Those have not changed as well. So next slide. This is fairly standard in terms of the way the priorities are put together. So species in the upper 25% of the priority matrix for biological should be considered for funding. Sampling projects that cover multiple species are obviously highly recommended because they would cover multiple species. So on the next slide, you have a really long list that you can't read. but this is the upper 25% of the matrix. So we're just gonna jump to the next slide where you can read it a little bit better. So these upper 25% of the matrix is actually grouped based on the sampling adequacy along the top, and then also the average priority. So this is taking the priority of the commission, the states, the councils, and averaging it, so that you could see that anything that's in that red box in the upper right is considered to have inadequate sampling and a high priority. So those are things that, like, okay, if you can hit one of those species, that's ideal. And so that includes the black sea bass, the Spanish mackerel, and the red snapper. In the yellow boxes, they are high in one category and low in the other. And then in the green box, you have species that are adequately sampled. They do have a low priority, so additional sampling is not really needed. They are in the upper 25%, but there's just sort of a note from the committee there that this isn't really a species that needs a lot of extra help at this point. So they did want to note that ocean pout does have a low average priority, but there are high significant changes in management and landings, and it does have a high resilience score. The next matrix is the bycatch sampling matrix, priority matrix. Again, they use the top quartile of the matrix, and this is listed by fleets. So these are regional gear specific sampling, and this is just a straight, if it's in the upper 25%, then these are fleets that would be recommended for more sampling. There is not additional criteria that goes in to breaking down this top 25. Does anybody have any questions on the matrices? I'll just pause real quick. Okay, then I will turn it back over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Julie. Do we have any questions on the RFP as we've presented it, including the subcommittee's recommendations for changing the ranking criteria? And do we have any online? Any questions online? Okay. Then I would ask, if there's no questions, seeing none around the room, if we can have a motion, please. Would somebody be willing to make the motion to accept this RFP? Renee?
Sure. Move to approve the ACCSP FY 2026 RFP, including updated priorities as presented in the funding decision document, biological and bycatch matrices.
Thank you, Renee. And we've got a second by Jason. Is there any discussion on the motion? We'll go with Megan and then Carrie.
Thanks, and fully intend to support this motion. I just want to provide a few comments. I think it's really a great improvement on the management, impact to management, and bolstering that criteria. I think that's a really good improvement. Probably not surprisingly, a little nervous about the reduction of the catch and effort, given Maine's reliance on this type of funding for our lobster reporting. But I think this is worth trying, and we should try it and see what happens. So I would just ask, maybe in October, after we get through a round of 2026 RFPs, we just check in and make sure this aligned with what we thought we wanted to achieve, and we're getting closer to our ACCSP goals, things like that. But I appreciate the subcommittee's work. I think this is worth trying, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks.
Very much appreciate that. Thank you. And Carrie.
Yeah, I want to second what Megan said. I really appreciate that the subcommittee could do this work. I know that I was very unavailable for most of it, so I can't take much credit. But I do think, especially adjusting the socioeconomic impact is an important change, and it reflects a changing priority that is happening on the ground and in management. So I think that is a really beneficial change.
Thank you. We've got Renee.
Yeah, Carrie, I just want to echo that. I know many times we've gone through and had recommendations out of ops that this is a wonderful project that is terribly ranked. And a lot of those are socioeconomic projects that we know would provide meaningful information to the fisheries that we all work on every day and would help move the needle in some ways. So I just have to echo that as well.
Yeah, Brandy.
Yeah, and one of those projects might have been one of North Carolina's, because I remember starting just a few years ago, baby, and going, why are socioeconomics, like the way it's structured, it's not even going to put that project high up with everyone else. It was impossible. And I'm like, well, that makes no sense, especially when we're getting a lot of feedback from the public about socioeconomic impacts. And so I fully support this. I'm super excited about it. And I think it's really going to help us with our proposals.
Thank you for, just one second, for those of us in the room that are long enough for the senior citizens and the memory care unit. This is a testament to the accomplishments of ACCSP and over 25 years of funding and getting the majority of the partners to the point at which we could even think about daring to possibly reduce the range for the ranking by 2 points, which adds up to more because it's multiplied. But to your point, Megan, great point about rechecking in October to make sure this is being implemented and coming to fruition like we're intending. And to your point, Brandy, about the socioeconomic, it was impossible. And when we first started, in the majority of the states had no trip ticket system, and we were still trying to support more sampling on the ground with the recreational fisheries and the for hire methodologies. It was impossible. So it's really a reflection of the investment of the money that has gone on with ACCSP for 25 years, that we can finally put that module at a place where potentially some funding could go towards those projects. So thank you. And we had Richard next, please.
Yeah, I just had a question. Do you have any thoughts or concerns about the interplay between catch and effort being reduced and then socioeconomic going up? If it would, if there's any compensation there, or if there would be any impact to some species more than others? It's kind of a loaded question, but.
Okay, I'm going to give that a go. So when the group did their sort of analyses, what they noticed was to Brandy's point, it gave the socioeconomic projects more of a shot. However, a lot of the rankings actually ended up staying the same in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4. It did create a few more ties. But one of the things that we did look into was how often folks are using the full range of points. And so most folks do use the full range of points, but I think that's probably something we're going to want to encourage moving forward to help break some of those ties. But I think what it's doing is it's really mushing everything into a little bit more of a narrow range instead of such a broad range. So it's going to give the folks, those proposals at the bottom, a little bit more of a lift and put them in play, so to speak. But I don't think it's going to push out the proposals that have always ranked really highly.
Jay?
Yeah, so I have been thinking about something with this, and I was trying to find the right spot to sort of, it's a tangent, so you can tell me to, yeah, it's relevant, but a tangent. But Richard gave me a nice, chance here to jump in. So, well, maybe I'll ask a question first to Julie or Jeff. So, these are scores. I had never really thought much about, I know about the scores and what's happening with the scores though. Is there additional math, or are you just sort of adding them up? So I'll ask the question first and then I'll follow up.
Yeah, so oh gosh, I wouldn't remember the page, but somewhere very deep, there's the whole ranking guide, and it will show you exactly how. And what happens is some of the numbers get multiplied, as Kathy mentioned. So the priorities will get multiplied by different amounts. And then what we do is All of the scores are averaged where we look at only those people that have responded. So it's not based on the number of people on the committee. It's just based on the number of people that responded in both the operations and advisory committees. And we'll calculate them separately by ops and advisors, and then calculate them once with everybody all together, which usually tends to drift toward the operations because they have more people. But one of the things that we've always noticed from the mathematical standpoint is it doesn't matter if you are a generous or stingy scorer as long as you're consistent. Our big thing is to tell everyone to be consistent, because once we average everything out, it actually looks like what folks have individually done as long as they're consistent. I don't know if that answered your question or not.
Yeah, no, it does. So thanks for that. So, and I'll try to be brief to not get us super off track, but I guess what I was thinking about as I was going through this, the system you have, it's pretty rigid. So there, and what you did was great. You know, I think it was really thoughtful and thinking about doing that testing as well. I think that's fantastic. So you kind of, okay, we're like, it's like reproducing like relatively well, that kind of a thing. That's all great. I guess there are other methods that you can use where the actual point range, you can turn that into, right now you're using the point range to weight. So it's doing kind of like two things. And so when you add new things in, you have to be super thoughtful about it because you're changing, and now you're not going to be able to kind of tie things back historically because you have more, you know, information going in. So I guess something to think about for the future, not now, but there's like other methods. And so just offer with the risk policy that we've been working on for a super long time. You know, we're using a logistic curve. So you kind of set your scoring within a logistic curve. And so that's consistent. It's always between 0 and 1. And instead of tweaking the scale of your inputs, what you tweak is the weighting. So there's like two pieces. And so you can upweight something or downweight something, but then you can plug new stuff in and it still sits between 0 and 1. So just a thought.
I think I can make you feel a little bit better. We probably should have thought to have a slide on that in the presentation. The weighting is done by the multiplying of the primary program priorities. That's such a hard series of words to say. And when you get sort of to the bottom half of the criteria that are available, those are not multiplied. So you see very small ranges for the number of points that a proposal could earn in that section. So 0 to 3 for impact on a stock assessment, 0 to 3 for impact or usefulness to management. There's even was the proposal prepared properly. Again, too many P's. And so I think that we are adding a very small range that will not make or break a bunch of other proposals in terms of how they were coming out before. It gives the author of the proposal the opportunity to raise awareness about the importance from a different aspect and make their pitch to the people that are doing ranking. And so some of the folks that are doing the ranking, as Jeff alluded to, do use the range of the points available, but some of them have a little bit more variety between whether they give them some of the points or all of the points. And again, as long as people are being consistent within their own rankings, then that works. So I get what you're saying about we change the total number of points and then adding anywhere from 0 to 3 points for a new criteria. But I think they're going to make very slight, nuanced changes that really more allow the opportunity for the author to promote the importance from that aspect. And the authors have to be very specific with the criteria they present for stock assessment and now with useful to management, because every proposal that's going to come in could be argued that it relates to a stock assessment, and of course it's useful to management. So that's where it's got a lot of power and responsibility to be used wisely by our advisors and our operations members really matters with how much they read with that and then give those scores. And for before we had this process, believe it or not, we were ranking these proposals from 0 to 3. And we had some folks, wanting to get down to the decimal number of, because they were all jammed together and it was too difficult. So I appreciate the suggestion of looking at alternative ways to do it. And if we get into that, I will contact you to chair that subcommittee and lead us to victory. Thank you, Jay.
Thanks. And I just want to add one more thing, really in response to Megan, your point, but the scoring criteria, many of you who've scored them remember this, but the maintenance proposals and then the new proposals have different aspects of the percentages of total funding. So 75% toward maintenance and then 25% towards new proposals. This scoring is expected to really impact the new proposals more than the maintenance because of how that process works. And so maintenance proposals, specifically main dealer reporting and lobster trip reporting, fall under maintenance and would be, smaller impact as this goes through. So very excited about that future looking new proposal standpoint. And along those lines, in recent years, not all of the maintenance funding has been allocated under maintenance and the remaining gets pushed to other new projects. Anyway, so that's where our evolution in project funding is at the moment. And I look forward to the new approach.
Thank you for those points. Any more discussion on this? Okay, I'm going to choose the easy way for voting and just ask if there are any objections to the motion. Any objections around the table? Seeing none, do we have any objections online? All good. And so we are approved by unanimous consent. It's not say those words either. Unanimous consent. I appreciate y'all's attention to this matter. It on the surface could look like it wasn't that big a deal, but it's a good one. Thank you. And I think we're going to move on to program updates from Julie next.
Thank you again. You can go to the next slide. Thank you. So I'm going to start with some software priorities. We have 2 projects that are currently being tested by the partners in the safest management system. The first one is registration tracking. This is just how we are how we manage the data for the people, the permits, the vessels, and how that's all tied together. What we're doing is we're essentially adding on a little bit on the edge. So if what we've been doing has been working for you, great. You don't have to change anything. But if you are a partner that typically has, especially like, oh, there's a corporation name, and then there are 2 people that own that corporation. Now we can manage that properly and identify those 2 people, and they don't need 2 accounts. They'll be able to have 1 account. We'll be able to manage it a lot better. I'm actually going to be presenting all of that to the vessel registry program that Jeff's going to talk about a little bit later. I'm going to be presenting that to them this afternoon. The other one is some online validations for e-trips. This is an ability for a partner to basically go in and look at any of the core fields and set their own validations. So it's the opportunity for a partner to say, this gear in this area does not work. And you're setting up a warning, and we've built in standardized warnings, so you can use ours that basically say this gear area combination doesn't work. Or you can write your own message. We have asked everyone to write kind messages. There's very few opportunities to reject because we don't necessarily want people to not report things that they have done that they shouldn't have done. But we are trying to limit things like if people just accidentally choose that they caught a lobster on a long line and we say, are you really sure? And then they look and they go, nope, that's not really what I did. So this gives them that opportunity to do that, and each partner gets to set up all of those for their own, so it's customized by partner. Next slide. We actually, throughout this year, had planned on doing the scoping of state one-stop reporting. This made excellent progress at the ComTech and IS meetings, especially at the IS meeting. So we think we're probably not even going to need to have a workshop because of the excellent progress we made at IS. What does this mean? This means that so far from the one-stop reporting or OSR initiative, we've been able to merge the federal reports. So if someone has both a GARFO and a CERO fishing report and they go in, the form says, aha, I see you have permits for both regions. And it asks all the appropriate questions, et cetera, et cetera. It will add in HMS questions if necessary. What we're now going to be doing is it's going to recognize that you as a person, when you go in to E-Trips, you choose the permit you're reporting under. And that permit for the person is always tied to a state. And so now it's going to say, okay, you've chosen the state of Massachusetts as your permit. We're going to ask the Massachusetts questions as well. So if there are additional questions that the state has always, quote unquote, lost the ability to ask because they were accepting the federal form, those questions are now going to be asked of the user so that the state essentially gains that functionality back. So a lot of the details got worked out, so we're going to be able to move forward on that. The next big oh, sorry.
Oh, you got Carrie?
Yeah, so that's a short, the 2025 timeline, but what is big picture timeline for when this might be available? We've had some stakeholders asking for this as of late, and we have some legislators that are interested as a result.
I don't have an exact answer for you, but the EDR redesign that I'm going to talk about now is slated to end at the end of this year. And so it will roll out in January of 2026. I'm going to say based on the priorities that we asked folks in IS to put forth, hey, these are all the software priorities. It's a very high priority, so I suspect it's going to get scheduled fairly soon. I can't guarantee it would be 2026, but I suspect that that is a possibility. I don't know. That's a very vague answer.
Joe?
Thanks. Just to follow up on that, and you know, to Carrie's point, I am aware that was mentioned in Maryland, and quite frankly, I thought that we've had buy-in from the commercial fishery of the importance of this. I thought we're so well past it, but I think we're seeing in a lot of different places, one of the common comments to the current administration is the burden of reporting, which to me is shocking. But I think this has been an important priority for us, and you know, the sooner it can move forward, the better.
Okay, thank you. We will add that to the weight of the priorities that were talked about with the IS folks. Okay, back to the EDR redesign. This is sort of our big hallmark project for this year in software. This is our timeline right now. We've started our active programming here. We have partner testing separated throughout. What we're done is beginning this Friday, we're going to be having meetings every 3 weeks with folks from all of the partners, and we will be updating them on our progress. We will occasionally be asking for testing and feedback. So we're just going to do this as an active, every time we get something done, come test it, so that we can really sort of keep everybody involved and that you'll know exactly where we are in the project. So I would say stay in touch with your ComTech folks on that, because those are the folks that are primarily on that group of reviewers on every Friday. One of the things that we did discuss at IS was we talked about, we had done a lot of requirement gathering. We went through all of that. We are going to be retiring the mobile application. It had a whopping 2 users. So we felt like we could move away from that safely without causing too much consternation. But we are going to be moving into a progressive web app, which at some point in the future may be available to be used offline, but it will be available on all devices. So even now you can use it on your phone as long as your phone is connected to the internet. So it's a balance there of if you're on a dock and you want to use it on your phone, you can. We also talked a little bit about the user interface. Next slide. The current page is 1 page. We're going to be splitting it out into 2 pages. Everybody was okay with that as long as we didn't go more than 2 pages, because ease of data entry is really important. So one of the things that we've asked the partners for is we've already solicited folks to find us a couple of dealers that use the key entry and a couple of dealers that use file upload. We want them to be part of our testing group just so that we can get actual dealers coming in and saying, no, the partner says it's fine, it's not fine, it's a pain, I don't like it. We want that feedback while we're developing it rather than after. Next slide. I'm going to move into the spring data load. We did have an on-time public data release of 4/15, so yay, very exciting. There are a couple of highlights that I wanted to point out, but mostly just check out the figure on the right, much love. I know when I started doing the spring data load, it was a struggle for everybody to get data in this early, and there was a lot of issues. And for this reason, this year, for a number of reasons, it was a struggle for a lot of partners to get their data in, and everybody put in a lot of time and effort to get stuff in. So we really appreciate that. There was a conversion factor with Maine Atlantic mackerel. And those data have been corrected prior to the load, so that is ready to go. The New York data was supplied despite the fact that the New York data contact person resigned. So New York staff stepped up and was like, hey, yeah, we can get you the data. Other people are going to take care of that. So kudos to the New York folks there. And then also North Carolina worked really, really hard. They've had a lot of staff transition down there. And there is a portion of the December data that isn't quite entered. Otherwise, they got us all of their data, which is huge because they had to put a lot of work into that. So thank you to everybody that put in a lot of hard work for that. We really appreciate all of your efforts. All right, I'm just going to go into 2 other projects that we've been talking about. One is limited confidential access. So the current confidential access, essentially what happens is you apply, and if you fill out that form, you then have a database account. Unfortunately, we built that on the idea that we were going to be thinking people would be filling out the form because they needed a database account. And then the partners started saying, oh, what if they can still fill out your form? Could they fill out your form for custom data requests too? And we're like, great. But then they get the database account and then someone has to go in and cancel the database account, and it causes a lot of extra work. So what we're going to do is we wanted to form a new partner access level. So next slide, we now have something called limited access. So folks can apply for something, and this is excellent for if you are on a TC or something like that. You don't get a database account, you can't query anything, but you're allowed to look at the spreadsheet that you get as a result of a custom data request. The original full access is still going to exist. So next slide. So limited access is primarily used for folks that are stock assessment folks on technical committees, or CDR analysts, or someone who is a grant or researcher who needs those confidential data, and the partner says it's okay for them to see the spreadsheet or to be in the meeting where the spreadsheet is talked about, but they're not getting the full bang. But then there are other folks that are staff that are for partners or data security, and they'll still be able to do full access. So essentially, we've just expanded the capabilities of the confidential access module that we have. Yes.
Just wanted to touch on this briefly. As you guys remember, confidentiality and the protection of our data are core to ACCSP. So I really appreciate this change and the fact that it was a change that was made that makes it easier for people to get the data only that they need to see. And I really appreciate the efficiency of this. So thank you very much. And because of the importance of confidentiality, I wanted to stop here and see if there were any questions. Jay.
Yeah, thanks for this. So I'm being a little dense, and I hope you'll. Can you like? I'm not understanding the nuance here, so give it another go, and I'll see maybe if it sinks in.
Absolutely. Sorry, I was trying to go quickly, but that was bad pyro. So If you go into the data warehouse and go to the form, you can choose limited access or full access. And there will be a little info button that tells you you probably only want limited access, but if you're not sure, click here and we'll explain to you what those two mean. And so limited access means that you're signing the form, you agree to all the confidentiality rules, but you are not going to get a database account. You won't be able to query any of your own confidential data when you log into the data warehouse. However, when ACCSP does your custom data request, you can actually look at that form and you understand that okay, I got this data, I shouldn't share it with anybody because I've signed the form and I understand the rules. And this is excellent for folks who are on TCs because oftentimes one person will have a confidential file and they can't share it in the room because not everybody has the thing. But we also want to, as Kathy said, we don't want everyone to have full access because just because you're on the TC, we want you to be able to do your job on the TC, but you don't necessarily, that doesn't mean you can necessarily get in the database and query whatever you want from that partner. So does that help describe the nuance better?
Yeah, so it's kind of like on demand. It's just like for that kind of that individual thing you need, but then it goes away when you're done with that. Got it. Thank you.
Any other questions? Megan?
Thanks. Yeah. Is the limited access limited in time? So you have a specific amount of time that you have access to the file, or is it limited in you are on the Menhaden TC, you get access to Menhaden data, but in perpetuity?
So it works the same way in terms of you can have up to 5 years. So if you're someone who's on multiple TCs, we don't want you to have to fill out the form every time a TC ramps up and has a file. We want you to say, I'm on these 3 TCs, and then a partner can say, you may have access for 3 years or whatever that partner, 1 year, whatever that partner normally says is okay. And then we would remove that access. So when a TC goes to do their work, they'll easily be able to see, okay, yes, these people have access to the data, they can go ahead and do their work. So the timing and the way that we revoke access and cancel access works exactly the same way. So as you start to approach your expiration date, you'll get an email that says, hey, it's expiring, you may want to renew.
Yes, we've got Jeff and then Renee, please.
Thanks. And just to say it a little bit different way, the full confidential access lets you log in and query whatever you want. The limited confidential access is really to view a data set prepared by somebody else.
Yeah, and Megan, as the state's confidential access person, we look at any requests pretty heavily. And if somebody just says, hey, I need to have access to the database to query New Hampshire data for this purpose, and they put the 5-year range, I will send them an email and I will say, do you really need 5 years? Your project looks like it's only a year long. And so we have the ability to change the end dates regardless, so that both of them could be limited in scope, if that helps that.
Folks online, want to make sure we afforded an opportunity if you have any questions. Okay, we're good. All right, we'll keep moving then. Thank you.
Okay, I'm just finding where I am, sorry. Okay, so the next one is conversion factors. Next slide. So conversion factors have been talked about. We started projects years ago with the Commercial Technical Committee. As some of you may or may not be aware, some of the older conversion factors or existing conversion factors, the question is, where did they come from? And the answer is, nobody really knows. They're just conversion factors that were found in a report at some point, and the origin of them is a sort of a mystery. And so there's been a push to investigate what are current conversion factors and how we handle that information. And that's true both on the Atlantic coast and also in the Gulf. They've done a number of these projects as well. So the conversion factor history is there's very few updates that are ever done to these conversion factors, and there's limited data supporting those numbers. So this particular round, it had 5 priority species: American eel, Atlantic menhaden, Atlantic sharp-nosed shark, blue crab, and snowy grouper. And then we had 6 states that were participating: Maine, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Virginia, North Carolina, and Florida. So if we go to the next slide, you can see that there were significant samples in a few of those species. Some of them not as much, like sharp-nosed shark, but that was expected going in. And part of this was delayed because, as you may have noticed, this was initiated to start in 2020, and we all know that nothing happened in 2020 that was supposed to start in 2020. So sampling was delayed, and that's why we're here now talking about the results of this project. So from these samples, we now have, next slide, please, better data documentation of where these conversion factors are going to be coming from. There's geographic distinction. What we're finding is partners have always had different conversion factors, but now we're noticing that they're a little more different in some species than we had anticipated. And this also allows for partner-specific time periods. The recognition is that these fisheries have not necessarily remained the same, so it isn't appropriate to say this is the conversion factor today, therefore we should apply it all the way back to 1950. That's not how that should work. And so we're figuring out how far back we should be applying these, or maybe it's just we've used them from now to date forward. So our next steps are creating and maintaining the background code, which is on the ACCSP side, and then partners will be updating and maintaining their conversion factors and timelines. So conversion factors will very likely have timelines associated with them, which is a newer feature. So we wanted to just take the time to thank all of the folks that participated, and a special shout out to Chris Bradshaw and Alan Bianchi, because they did all the math to take all the samples that were collected and turn those into conversion factors. So really appreciate their time and effort in working on that project. And then there's one more slide that I wanted to go over, which is some citizen science updates. The SciFish project does have a new project that's been approved to come online. This is the Rhode Island recreational discards. These data are actually being collected through Angler Catch, which is a Harbor Light product, and it's being used in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and a couple of other places. And Rhode Island would like to see their data showing up in the SciFish module. So they're going to continue to use the application because you don't want to lose users by having them change applications, but they're going to be sending the data into the SciFish API. So they'll be standardized and they'll be living in the central place, but the end user isn't changing their experience. So this is a really particular project in Rhode Island that has John Lake from the state, and then also Scott Travers from RISA that are the PIs for this. And they're trying to close some gaps for recreational discards, and then also try to get a little bit more information on the catch and effort for some of the short-term or pulse fisheries like cod and tautog. So they're really excited about this project, especially because they think that enhancing collaboration between the stakeholders and the fisheries managers is just going to be overall good for recreational sampling and the recreational estimates that are produced. So we're glad to have that project come on as a new SciFish project. Also, as part of CDAR 90, which was the data workshop was last week, there are 2 South Atlantic Fishery Management Council citizen science projects that ACCSP at one point has provided some support for. So we wanted to give them a shout out here because the data from both of these projects was actually accepted for use in the stock assessment. The first is called Fishery, and that's the picture that's here. This is a project that uses historical pictures, primarily from the 1940s through the 1980s, and it uses trained volunteers who use these pictures to determine fish lengths. So that data was able to be used in the red snapper assessment from Fishery. And then also the release data, and the release is discards that are currently being collected. So these are some more current data. So the release lengths of fish were accepted toward the end of the week. So shout out to the South Atlantic Council, and if you have any questions about the details of those projects, Julia Bird from the council is in the back, and she knows more about both of those projects than I do. And that's my part of the program updates.
Am I allowed to double shout out to Julia and the council for those projects? I'm going to do it anyway. The fact that lengths of fish from photos was accepted for use in the stock assessment from 80 to 100, 80 to 60 years ago, to me is mind boggling, and it's a huge accomplishment. So kudos to you all. And we'll pass it over to Jeff.
All right, thank you. Those are some great examples of where ACCSP selected and funded projects have kind of come to fruition and been useful in their intended purpose, but very, very cool. Stepping forward to recreational fisheries project status, we're really excited. There's been work from the Rec Tech Committee over the last year to do a release catch card project. Listed here as the discard project. That data collection just started May 1st in 8 states. It's a testament to the states taking ownership and wanting to try a new method to supplement the MREP APIS, the Access Point Angler Intercept Survey, and collect a little bit more information from anglers during their trip about what species they were releasing and not keeping, what those sizes were, and really what was their condition a little bit more. So we're really excited to collect that data over the next 6 months, and that is even leading to other folks being interested in this general methodology and applying it elsewhere. Another major project that we've been working on for a long time is for hire methodology. We proposed a data review of existing 2000 through 2004 data, the GARFO VTR logbooks and the APIS data collection to kind of test out some of the feedback we got from an MREP external peer review on what that design looks like. We are wanting and close to being ready to do that work, simply waiting on the funding to get approved and move forward on that.
That's the year 2000, 2004.
Thank you for the correction. That was not the year 2000. That was 2020 through 2024, where we had both the tablet data collection and the GARFO VTRs. Love the help. Perfect. In the moment. Within APIS, I do want to touch on 2 items that are on screen a little bit weedy, but these are great in the kind of coordinated process of the Rec Tech Committee being the Atlantic focal point for all the states, and to figuring out what questions are important and how to ask them, and then what timeline to get those integrated into one of the MREP general surveys. So there has been interest, more detailed information on depredation. HMS has put in a request to really add that information as values to an existing question. That is a relatively simple change and has been discussed by Rec Tech, and they might want to add a new question, but so the new codes can get added in 2026. The new question would have to go through the Paperwork Reduction Act, and so that probably wouldn't be able to come on as a new question until 2027. Under areas fished, there has been more work by Rec Tech Committee and presentations by Massachusetts staff and New England Council support for discussing more granular area fished, whether that was a 10-minute grid cell in the South Atlantic. There's some concerns about the level of detail and the ability to complete those intercepts. And so the committee continues to work on where would different sized grid cells work so that it would be a consistent question for a range of states. And maybe one of the things they're discussing at this point, it would be 10-minute grid cells from maybe the Virginia, North Carolina line and the statistical areas as the area fish definitions from North Carolina down through Georgia. And that's one area that they're still discussing, and that's why implementation in 2027 is related to both the committee making their decisions, and once those decisions are made, getting it through the NOAA Paperwork Reduction Act, and then assuming those go well, actually programming that into the tablet. So they're looking at 10-minute, 30-minute squares in the statistical area, but those are all areas. And basically, if you've got additional input, please work with your Rec Tech members before their September meeting to move that forward. Another item related to recreational sampling this year was a really great pilot in January and February. There were for-hire telephone survey effort sampling that was done from Maryland through Georgia, and the APIS dockside catch sampling was performed in South Carolina. This verified that there is fishing activity occurring in previously unsampled months. South Carolina and Georgia are, looking forward to 2026, are, willing and able to continue with the for-hire telephone survey part and add in the APIS dockside piece. We have sent a memo to NOAA Fisheries requesting fishing effort survey sampling to be begun on the Atlantic during January and February starting in 2026. That would allow the calculation of general survey MRIP estimates 12 months of the year for the South Atlantic. North Carolina and Florida already do wave one. By adding in South Carolina and Georgia, it would really expand the ability or the availability of data. So we're optimistic about that. Also, the ACCSP or the Atlantic Implementation Plan for Recreational Data includes the desire for the effort sampling FES to occur in the Mid-Atlantic, again, to track when it would be useful to begin the dockside sampling further north. So as that happens, I just want to let you know that this is being explored and talked about for next year. We're keeping that optimistic hat on at the moment for this effort sampling, and just request that, again, talk to your Rec Tech members and coordinate before we get to the September meeting to move forward there. We are doing pretty well on time with what we have left in the presentation. I wanted to touch on regional data coordination, really highlighting some projects that have significant recurring meetings. These are either weekly or bi-weekly meetings that have been occurring for over a year in most cases. So they discuss addressing requirements, data flows, technical developments as kind of ACCSP and our partners modernize the data collection, and we update those submission methodologies. So North Carolina is updating their dealer reporting software and integrating the HMS bluefin tuna dealer reporting submission pathways. And they've been coordinating with us and HMS on the use of safest electronic dealer reporting to capture some data elements that are still in development of the North Carolina software. And then that'll help maintain the HMS reporting needs. So they've been great in kind of identifying who can do what when, informing and developing the outreach to their dealers and meeting the needs of HMS. So when that development is done, the burden will be less. We're at kind of a hiccup point at the moment where it might take a little bit of extra effort by those dealers when they land a bluefin tuna to make sure that those reports get in and meet everyone else's requirements. The Southeast Fisheries Science Center Coastal Logbook and HMS logbooks, we've been working with them, long-term movement to move from paper to electronic. A lot of what's already programmed in SAFIS is there and working from the initial data collection point, but we're still working on how to get that information from ACCSP to Southeast Fisheries Science Center when they're ready on their end, and to do that as well as when the regulations are put in place, so that fishermen would not have to do both paper and the electronic logbook. So the technical piece is largely in place. We're continuing on that, and we need to get some additional pieces with the partners going for that. So they're actively testing the software as we go. And then the third one, ACCSP and GARFO have been collaborating on dealer module and development. They're modernizing their infrastructure on dealer landings database. And those changes are expected to be transparent to end users. I do want to say they've been really great about positively sharing their approaches and our approaches and finding ways that work both without redeveloping each system. And GARFO has, just a little shout out to them, they had selected ACCSP Safest Dealer Reporting as the primary pathway for dealer data back in May 1st, 2004. So happy 21st birthday to Safest Dealer Reporting. That they are maintaining that kind of primary data flow, both through key entry, other software that submits through the API, and historical file upload, which we are likely rebranding as file validation and transfer, because it'll have a little bit more feedback to the users come 2026. The next coordination project is on FIS and IRA Atlantic Coast projects. These are two federal data modernization projects that have ACCSP involvement. As Julie touched on earlier, the Federal Vessel Permit Registry is to align the permits from GARFO and Southeast Regional offices that for that same vessel, and make sure that the vessel identifiers, representation, and permits are available in one place. We certainly appreciate that to be inclusive of the fins. When those things like which data set has the right current name for a vessel get resolved, that makes the ACCSP work of collecting that information, presenting it in the apps and the API work a little bit smoother. So we're excited about how that's going to go. Both of these two systems are to really consolidate the infrastructure for multiple federal offices into central cloud-based data systems. So that's part of the nod for efficiency. And the East Coast Logbook project is looking to do some of what eTrips has already been able to accomplish on one-stop reporting, but also extend that to some other projects and apply it to an underlying infrastructure. So we appreciate the inclusiveness of that approach, resolving issues across multiple partners. They've asked ACCSP how we've done that in the past to really support both federal and state future implementation of these projects. Again, will help what happens within ACCSP. Sometimes there's a lot of things that happen. One more slide, please. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes, and this slide kind of summarizes what we put in our last 6 month grant report, and wanted to at least call out some of the exciting things that we have here. So we run and fund the Safest Help Desk. They had 612 calls over the last 6 months to fishermen and dealers calling to say, hey, I've got this issue. How can you help here? Was this a bug? Was this something I need to fix on my device? We've had 99% uptime, with a highlight of some of our outreach and committee meetings, how we've been doing our outreach posts, how many committee meetings have we had in the last 6 months, et cetera. And then also how much the bottom left is custom data requests. So 32 custom data requests. Those are usually things that people can't do on their own. They take somewhere between 2 and 6 weeks of staff time to back and forth to get done. So that is a pretty high workload. And then the data pulls that we've done for software support, were 60 of those that occurred in the last grant reporting period. So the really exciting one from the spring data load, getting out on time, the bottom right pie graph there. adding up all those different types of data sets that go into the spring data load, that is 47 data sets. So I want to note that's a huge workload on partner staff as well as ACCSP staff to consolidate that together and get the 2024 commercial landings out done and out the door to support everyone. So kudos to all of your staff that contribute to that. And then what would a meeting be without at least touching on our funding uncertainty? At this point, we did have some fiscal year 2024 ACCSP approved projects that were not yet funded. Within the last 2 days, one of those projects has been funded, the Massachusetts modernization of their database. So we do know that there's gonna be movement on that one to reimburse Massachusetts for funds already spent. 2 others are getting their paperwork prepared, and we expect the funding to come through soon. The FY 2025 admin grant and projects are not yet funded, and we're getting word that there's movement on those things as early as this morning. So we're really excited that NOAA and the commission have really prioritized funding for the commissions and the FINs to move that as fast as possible. I do have a note on screen that during the October meeting, the 2025 projects, there was one for Maine for materials for halibut age sampling, and before Pat Keller, her retired, he said, let's hold off on that. Well, let's figure out where the funding goes, and if there's money in the admin grant to be able to support it, then we should be able to purchase the equipment on behalf of Maine when that time comes. We still don't have that answer, but it's still on the table. 2 other things, the FY 2025 ACCSP had an approved FIS proposal to modernize and kind of expand some of our IT infrastructure to make it more redundant and scalable, and a little bit kind of dip our toe in the cloud databases. And so we are excited about getting that project started and being able to support parts of the EDR redesign. Its start date got moved to 1 July, so we're still hopeful that things will get approved and moving by the time we get to that point. That is the end of the project or the program updates, Madam Chair.
Next slide. Does anyone around the table have any other business they would like to bring before the council? I'm not seeing anything. And do we have anybody? Oh,
I have one.
Well, that I know.
Okay.
Jeff, I'm sorry. Do we have anything online? Okay. And Jeff, I believe you have an item.
I do. Thank you. Yes. One slide, please. I want to take a moment to thank Stephanie Iverson and congratulate you on your retirement. As you correctly noted at the beginning of the meeting, you've been a key member of ACCSP development for over 25 years. You are on ACCSP on proposals to ACCSP, both in creating them and working on them for the Commonwealth of Virginia. They're listed kind of the bottom left here. You've been on pretty much all the technical committees. You've been chair of operations committee, and it's great to have you at the table at coordinating council. We did happen to find a picture from a 2006 ops meeting. So if you do look on screen, Stephanie is stylish as always in something pink and having a ball. If you look really closely at the far end of the picture, our chair, Kathy Knowlton, is also represented. But we do have a little gift card for you. We hope that you can put that towards some of your fabulous, stylish sunglass collection that we always look forward to seeing. I do have a card for you that many folks have signed, and if I did not properly give you an opportunity to sign it, then let's get that done as the meeting closes before we let Stephanie disappear with that. So anyway, Stephanie, thank you. Appreciate your contributions. You've always been looking forward to moving ACCSP forward. And of course, I knew you when I was at BIMS and working on projects through VMRC. And so thank you for that mentorship as well.
Wow. I still look the same 25 years ago. That's good. I haven't aged at the moment. Thank you guys. It has been my absolute pleasure to watch ACCSP grow into the organization it is now. Nobody knew the little fledgling group of ACCSP people who came around to a table, sometimes nitty gritty, fighting all the way through, trying to get data along the Atlantic coast to look like each other, to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. And that was the great accomplishment. There are so many more accomplishments that happened in my tenure here in the last 32 and a half years that I've been at VMRC, and 25 plus years on ACCSP. I think I came in 1998. When 1997, I was sitting at the table. So thank you guys. Thank you so much for an amazing career and amazing friendships. I don't know how many friends I've developed over these last years, but they know who they are. We have and will have some times together once I leave here. They know I'm available. I'm in Chesapeake. I have a lovely home. They know they can come drop by and come see me anytime they like. They know who they are. So I appreciate you all. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Kathy. Kathy was one of my, you were my vice chair, but she was my vice chair when we did operations committee. Cherie Patterson was with me. So many. I can't, where's Cherie? Cherie in the back. Longtime girlfriend. So it has truly been a pleasure. I cannot tell you how difficult it was to come sit here for my last meeting and know that a lot of my friends, I won't see them as frequently as I normally would see them, but we'll see each other again. We have wine that travels and we know what to do. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you for allowing me to spend and share my years here, grow up, so to speak, and leave knowing that I'm leaving in capable hands to amazing young men and women who will be working with you all in the future. So good luck. Keep doing what you do. It's been a blast. And of course, I will buy something. You know, I'll have a nice pair of new shoes for that. Thank you, guys.
I remember when I walked into my first ops meeting. At that time, it was a much smaller group. There was not representation from all the state partners yet. There's only about 7 people around the table, and I kept thinking that my chief of fisheries was absolutely crazy to send me. I was way too young and didn't know what I was doing. And unfortunately for me, that meeting was going through the data standards document line by line, group editing. And I remember just thinking, don't fall asleep. Don't fall asleep. You have to represent the South Atlantic. And it was just, I thought I was not going to make it through that meeting, but I did. And part of it was also with Stephanie's guidance. Stephanie, along with Dee Lupton and Cherie in particular, they beat the drum of the importance of the partnerships and representation of all the different entities here at the table. And it sounds so simple to have standard data collection. It just, sounds so simple. But Stephanie, you were a legacy creator for where we are now. Thank you, ma'am. And with that, we are at the end of the agenda. So we are not only getting you all back on schedule, we are giving you 7 whole minutes back. This is how we roll here. This is how we roll. And can I get a motion to adjourn, please? Jay, can we get a second? Thank you, Ben. And we're adjourned. Thank you. Safe travels, everyone. Be careful.